Beautiful day here at the house. Got some pretty awesome looking icicles here. Hey guys, Ottawa Scotty here. I've got two wells here at my home in western Quebec. They are both surface wells. You'll understand why I have two very shortly. But let's have a look at this first well, which is in the back here. The whole reason for this video is to not actually talk about wells, but wells are definitely at the focal point of this conversation. Really, I'm trying to make a video here about galvanic corrosion, but the whole story of the plumbing issues I'm having in my house right now all begin with my well. This is a surface well. I do have another well, which is the exact same construction, which is located over here. So we can actually go have a look at that, and that'll give you a good indication of what, see the deer I've been through here, of what is actually in that structure. That's it right there, buried under all that snow. All right, let's see if we can get at this one here. I use this well for the summer. This one here, actually, it can dry out in the summertime. So, anyways, you can see how it's constructed. It's basically just these interlocking concrete things, and it's essentially just collecting groundwater. So this goes about 30 feet down. And it's nothing too complicated. I have from my house up there a line that goes all the way underground and comes in. You can see where the pipe comes in. It's right there. And yeah, it just this is not getting the water from an aquifer. We're in fairly low-lying ground here, and there is a creek just behind this tree line. So the water table, that's why my house is built on top of this hill. The water table here is pretty high, so it's a good scenario for these surface wells. A high water table and sandy, soft sandy ground. The other type of well that's typically used in this region is the artesian well. Now, an artesian well is a drilled well that goes way down through the bedrock. You're looking for cracks in the bedrock and an aquifer, essentially. And these aquifers have water that's trapped between bedrock, so oftentimes it's really clean. The chances of it being contaminated with, say, like something from your neighbor's septic is very low. Because it's so deep down, and then also that water is under pressure, so oftentimes it'll make its way all the way to the surface of your well casing without needing a pump. There are a lot of advantages to having an artesian well. Much more expensive though. So in my case, I have two surface wells, and the conditions back in my backyard there are the ideal conditions to build a surface well. There's a creek back there. The water table is very high and the ground is very sandy and soft, so it's easy to dig in. There's not a lot of rocks or anything like that. So with the surface well, you're collecting surface water or ground. It's just where the water table is. It's just groundwater, so it's very susceptible to being contaminated with all kinds of stuff. If your neighbor's septic system could be leaching through and somehow getting into your groundwater, or it could be a road that goes by there and the trucks are salting the road, and then that salt gets washed washed into your groundwater through the soil. All kinds of stuff like that can happen, which doesn't usually happen with an artesian well. Although it can happen with an artesian well as well, the chances are greatly reduced though. But even if your surface well is good, clean water, no matter what, it's always going to have a lot of dissolved minerals in there. Just because that's the nature of groundwater. It's got all kinds of stuff in it, right? Really, that brings us to the purpose of this video. This video is going to be all about galvanic corrosion, and just keep that in your mind, that the water coming from that well there has all kinds of dissolved ions and minerals in there. Alright, galvanic corrosion is a electrochemical process by which two dissimilar metals, if they're in electrical contact, one of those metals will corrode preferentially over the other one in the presence of an electrolyte. So in my case, the water coming into my house is very much an electrolyte, and I've got old plumbing where there's all kinds of different fittings. You know, I've got brass fittings with copper fittings attached to steel fittings. So when you've got all these different types of metals electrically connected together, and you've got, you know, that type of water coming into your house, you're essentially creating a battery. So this electrochemical process is the same process that, you know, we exploit in other aspects of our life to build things that are useful to us, so like batteries. Or ironically, in the same discipline of plumbing, we actually use that same electrochemical property to protect hot water tanks, and that's precisely what your anode rod does. Is that, you know, you put the anode rod into your hot water tank, and it's a dissimilar metal that is eroded away and protects your actual hot water tank from being corroded. So let's have a look at some of the problems that I'm facing here. So here are just some simple things, you know, but you know, my faucet here is corroding, and it looks pretty bad, and there's nothing I can do to get this to stop. This is some kind of a plating on top of this metal, and it's developed these small holes, and once this process gets going, it just doesn't stop. There's nothing you can do about this. You also notice that the faucet is leaking, and that is also a problem with this galvanic corrosion. It creates a lot of deposits in the water, and you know, just a lot of crusty things like this, and that gets into the seals of your taps and creates drips like that. So this faucet is going to be being replaced in the next day or so. So that's one kind of a annoying nuisance. But let's have a look at some of the other more concerning aspects of this process. So in the summertime, I actually had a leak in my basement, a water leak down here, and which happened at my water heater. So you can see, sorry, this is a bit of a mess down here. You see this sort of region here that's got discoloration here on the plywood. My water heater was leaking, and where it was leaking from was right here. And the tank is steel. Here is the old, this is what's called a dielectric nipple, and this goes into your tank. This is the old one. This is why it was leaking. And this is the new one. So I put that in. I put the pipe tape on there. But this is a brass fitting, and you see we've got the copper. We've got copper going to brass, going to steel. It's like the worst situation you can have for this type of water. And I'll give you an example here. So the threads on this steel fitting used to come up all the way to the edge of this plastic here. If you look carefully, you just see it, just all of those threads have dissolved away. Not so bad on this side, but you know, a little bit on this side too. But I mean, this is spectacular corrosion. It's literally just dissolving into the water, and it's because it's not just corrosion. The metal is actually being electrically eaten. You'll notice that this plastic, there's a piece of plastic in here, and that's why this is called a dielectric fitting, because this piece of plastic that's inside here is meant to try to electrically decouple itself from, say, the brass fitting or whatever's coming in here. Now this is just a quick fix that I did here, but all the plumbing in this house is going to be going to PEX. So this was kind of a spectacular failure of this galvanic corrosion situation, and it's something that I wasn't aware of before, so this is why I'm making this video. Here's the dip tube for the water heater, for this exact water heater, and you can see it's the same. If you look at this, it's the same situation. You know, here's where the threads used to come up to, and they've literally just disappeared into the water from this electrochemical process. And this happens over time. It's not going to happen overnight. That's why I put these steel fittings in here, knowing that I was full well that I was going to replace all of the plumbing and this water tank and everything. So I mean, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it happens fairly quickly, and it's something that you should be aware of when you're plumbing. Interestingly, I've replaced the anode rod in this hot water heater, and that's using this same property of galvanic corrosion to protect the tank. Look, so here's an anode rod right here. It's a brand new anode rod that was going to go into this water heater, but I am going to replace that one too, so just hold on to this anode rod. But so that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to highlight that very seldom talked about plumbing issue, and I guess the reason why we don't talk about it too much anymore is just because of most newer houses are using like PEX. So but there are a lot of older houses out there that are still using copper and brass and steel fittings, and this video is really for those people. Just be aware that if you have a similar scenario that I do, where you've got multiple dissimilar metals connected together, and you've got hard well water that has a lot of minerals in it, that's a perfect storm, perfect situation for this galvanic corrosion to occur. And it's quite spectacular, and can be quite devastating if you get a leak in your basement or something like that. So keep an eye on it. And if you like this video, consider subscribing to my channel. You Ottawa, Scotty, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. We'll see you next time.